What if I told you that there was an experiment in which the researchers lied to their patients, withheld information, and even prevented them from getting a cure that could save their lives, just so that they could study the long-term effects of their condition if left untreated? You'd think I'd be lying, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, I'm not lying, so stay tuned because we have a very interesting episode today that just might blow your mind. Welcome to Vlogs of History. So yeah, I'm being honest about the experiment. It pains me to talk about it, but I feel that we have to talk about it because it's something very important that really had a big impact on the way we conduct research today. We're talking about the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment, an experiment that was conducted in the 1930s that lasted 40 years too long. Researchers wanted to know the long-term effects of syphilis if left untreated. Now, there was another study done a few years before that studied syphilis, but the study was done on the white population. Unfortunately, people were still racist enough to believe that whites and blacks were affected differently by disease, and that's why you have the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment, an experiment solely dedicated to studying the long-term effects of syphilis on the black population. Before we go on, let's first define what syphilis is. Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease, or STD, that's usually contracted via sexual intercourse but can also be passed down from mother to child during pregnancy if the mother is infected. Syphilis has 4 stages, and depending on which stage you're at, the symptoms may vary. It's often called the imitator disease because it imitates the symptoms of other diseases. Its mortality rate is between 8 to 58% if left untreated, and simply put, if you can avoid having syphilis, well, you should. It's not something that you would want to have. The study recruited 399 infected patients from a small county in Alabama called Macon County. Now, Macon County was a very poor place. The residents were illiterate, uneducated, and had no medical care. In fact, some had never even seen a doctor in their lives before. So when the researchers came and offered them free hot meals and free medical care if they chose to participate in the study, you can be sure that a lot of them chose to sign up. As long as they came and did their tests, they would get free hot meals and free healthcare. This was so that they would be motivated enough to endure the very painful tests that were required for the study. Now here's where the problem kicks in. The researchers, they never told them that they had syphilis. Instead, they told them that they had bad blood. And the medication that they were being given, well, they were just placebos that had absolutely no effect on their health. Now, to be fair, when the study started in 1932, there wasn't a cure for syphilis available. So they weren't really doing anything wrong. They were just studying the long-term effects of syphilis if left untreated. The problem was when penicillin came around in the 1940s and then became officially accepted as the cure for syphilis nationwide, that the patients were purposely prevented from getting that cure just so that the study could go on. Even when a nationwide effort to promote penicillin and eradicate syphilis came to Macon County, they were still prevented from getting the treatment. Even during the World War, 250 men were drafted for the army only to be denied because they were infected with syphilis. Then again, they were prevented from getting a cure. Even in the 1950s and 1960s, when efforts were made to make research more ethical, nobody took the time to reevaluate the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. Nobody took the time to evaluate its ethics. Some of the nurses were worried about the ethical implications of their actions, but they had to follow the doctor's orders. There was nothing else they could do. The study was supposed to last only 6 months, but ended up lasting well over 40 years. It wasn't until Peter Buxton, the whistleblower in our story, that he saw what was going on and took his story to the New York Times, who published it on the front page. You can obviously imagine the public outrage that ensued. What followed after that were a series of bills and regulations that were meant to prevent such a thing from ever happening again. Whenever you did a study, now you had to inform your patients fully of what you were doing, you had to be completely transparent, and your study had to be up for review by a review committee. By the end of the study, there were 28 deaths directly linked to syphilis, 100 more from related complications, 40 of their wives were infected, and as a result, 19 children were born with syphilis. Those are very big numbers that I'm sad to say are part of our history. But hey, at least something good came out of this. We now have laws and regulations that prevent such a thing from ever happening again. Alright, so that was it for this week's episode of Vlogs of History. I really do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave a like, share it to a friend, and subscribe to be notified when the next episode comes out. Remember, these episodes come out every single Monday, and if you missed the previous one, click the link on the video. If not, there's a link on the description. Make sure to check it out. It's very interesting. As always, I'm your host, Darius Cosden. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all next week.